dub dub. Dooby dooby da, dooby dooby dub dub. Dooby dooby da, dooby dooby dub dub. Dooby dooby da, dooby dooby dub dub.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Sure. And we are now live for another episode of Dorks. And you know what? If you're not seeing double, this is our second live stream of the evening. We did one earlier with the Token Dead. But now we're going to get a bit dorky and talk with some awesome peeps with us today. We have James.
How's it going, everybody?
Yo, yo.
I'm a bit confused on the whole peeps comment. Like, there's not going to be like a giant microwave involved, right?
You know I'm the whitest guy ever, so it's just how I talk.
All I could think of is a giant microwave and how horrible that would turn out.
And our guest of the evening, James, I'll have you introduce our guest.
So I want to introduce our guest for the evening from Bob After Dark, Bob Anderson. Thank you so much for being on the show this evening.
Oh, did we lose Bob? Bobby there. He was here, we swear.
Oh, he muted it. He did something.
Yeah, let me see if I can unmute it from this side.
Bobby, Bobby there? Oh, we literally just had him. We were just talking to him about sharing the posts.
I know, we were joking around. He is here, so James, why don't you? Well,
I think he's restarting the chat. So,
okay.
Or he got a phone call because he was on mobile.
That is true. So, when he comes back, Bob Anderson, I know him. I first met Bob. Are you there, Bob? Bob, are you there? I think we heard you. Every time I feel like we have guests on, our system just crashes.
You know what we could probably do is have him make a phone call.
Bob, you there? Oh, this is riveting. This is riveting television, my friends.
We'll get it going. Let's see here. Well, James, why don't you talk a little bit about what Bob does?
So Bob is a podcaster as well. He started a show called Bob After Dark. It is a paranormal investigation show. They talk about cryptology, legends, hauntings, all that stuff. It is out of the Chicagoland area.
Guys, can you hear me? I'm so sorry.
We got Bob. There he is.
My phone decided to crap out. I am so sorry. Can I do my introduction again?
Sure.
Totally.
So, everybody, this is Bob Anderson from Bob After Dark. I first met him back in 2016 during the Ghostbuster reboot festivities out in Los Angeles. I first met him, and he's an awesome guy. So, Bob, welcome to Dorks the podcast. Thank you for being on our show.
Oh, hey there, children of the night. It's Bob from Bob After Dark, and I just want to say thank you so much to these fellow dorks for having me aboard. And like in every bit of Bob Anderson and Bob After Dark fashion, I had to have some technical difficulty right when the show decided to begin. So I really apologize, guys. That's what happens when you're trying to play Cash Cab and do a podcast at the same time.
No worries. Tell you what we'll do is if we do have further issues, what I'll do is I'll message you a phone number, and then we'll use that as a backup. I'll get you in through Skype on a different system. So I'll message that to you if things drop off.
Sounds
again.
good.
Awesome.
All right, so Bob, we were kind of
Okay,
getting the heads
excellent.
up on how you got what you do and exactly. So Bob, why don't you tell us a little bit about your show and what kind of drew you to do a show like this with the hauntings, the legends, and in the lore, and a little bit of the paranormal and stuff like that.
So it's actually funny you bring that up, and you brought up the Ghostbusters 2016. So Bob After Dark started as a show I did in my closet that literally was about nothing, and then one thing led to another, and I ended up with a radio deal based on what I was doing. Bob After Dark started literally as me kind of having like a roundabout discussion about nothing, and then one after another things started happening. I started having gaining more traction, and I had fans that would be listening to the show, and they would watch, and it was a very, very interesting, it was interesting how they reacted to my my show, right? And one thing led to another, and one day I woke up and I ended up talking to the local radio station where I'm from, and they said, hey, we want to make Bob After Dark a reality, and we want to do it, we want to give you a radio spot. And I said, wow. So it started off as a radio show, and they were like, but you have to do something that's not nothing. And I was like, oh crap, what do I do, right? So I started doing the show. I started talking about things that I knew the most about, which was the paranormal. I wanted to do a strictly Ghostbusters podcast, but it's already been kind of done, and I didn't want to oversaturate the market because people like Yes Have Some, they do a really good job as a Ghostbusters and pop culture-esque podcast as it is. And I didn't want to keep doing more Ghostbusters and pop culture podcasts. I wanted to, so the next thing I knew, I know a lot about ghosts. I know a lot about the paranormal, things that go bump in the night, cryptozoology, lights in the sky, etc. I grew up on that stuff, and I dabbled in paranormal investigations, and I dabbled in, other things like, watching things about Mothman and all this other stuff. And I put what I knew to the show, and I started off as a horror host, paranormal guy, and then I cut the horror host out much down the line, and I was literally just a paranormal guy. And now I've evolved into as our tagline with me and my co-host and my producer, we call ourselves those paranormal investigators that you see on TV, except we have a sense of humor.
So
now I travel literally all over the country. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, continue.
I was gonna say, so I now travel all over the country. I do panels at conventions. I have a business that's associated with the podcast, and I travel all over the convention scene, and I get to talk to people. I'm at podcast festivals. It's a lot of fun, and I just got back from kicking off my 2020 tour, and we can talk about a little bit about that later. But it's been a very cool adventure so far.
From something that started in the closet on Facebook Live.
Yeah, it's funny how that started, because Bob After Dark started off as a joke, because after 2016 I met a lot of new friends from the Ghostbusters hobby, and I'm like, I want to do something cool. And Facebook Live literally just started up around that time, and I said, there's nobody using Facebook Live, I think, for its fullest potential. So I started doing this really, excuse my expression, shitty show on Facebook Live with a headset microphone and a really bad internet connection like I have right now driving in my car. And it just evolved. It's really cool.
That's awesome. So do you still do Facebook Live with along with the radio station? What's your current process?
Okay, so every Tuesday night I get to the radio station, and the show starts as a radio show, Facebook Live, and it streams to smart TVs. We have our own, I don't know any other like products that do it, so I always refer to it as just a Roku thing, but I know like Apple TVs could get it if you have the apps. If you download the app, you can watch it as a TV show too. So it starts with that, and then I do what you guys do. I take the audio from the episode, I edit it together, and the podcast comes out every Friday.
Nice.
Yeah, it actually is a pretty nice setup, because he's in like a studio. Like, it looks like he's
it's a legitimate television / radio station. Just kind of like, I guess you could say it's more like the modern day public access, because it is local. So, it's not like a big name Chicago thing, but it's big with the community. And then from that, then I get the Facebook Live brings in people from literally all over the world. I have fans literally everywhere, and mostly Australia. Hearts off to those guys. And then the Facebook Live draws them in, and then the podcast goes to everybody that can't watch it live. My first bit of time when I was doing the show, I labeled myself as a podcast, but I wasn't a technical podcast. I was a live streaming podcasty kind of magazine show. And then recently, over the past couple months, I signed with the Memoriam Development Team, which is like a podcast network. I signed with them. They helped me get my show. They helped get the show up and running, and I am now a part of a great podcast group. And now my shows are syndicated not only through Facebook, AM, FM radio, TV, but I'm also in podcast land, which is where most ad revenue comes from, and what's the really hot thing right now. People aren't listening to music as much in their commutes; they're listening to podcasts. So I definitely wanted to tap into that market, and now here I am.
So Bob, you're telling me that you work in public access. It's a television show, and you're in the greater Chicagoland area. Isn't there another duo that does that? That's famous from Aurora.
Housewife of Horror. Yeah, they're I'm joking. They're good friends of mine too. Are you talking about Wayne's World?
Possibly.
Yeah, party on, James.
Party on, Bob. So I mean, Oh, go ahead, Leo.
Oh no, I was gonna say is so basically what you're saying, Bob, is you've achieved the dream that we're all striving for.
Oh, what dream is that?
Just to be on
Syndication, get that
yeah.
sweet syndication money.
I know, to actually say this is your job rather than it's something your wife yells at you about.
It's I'm it's a little harder to, how do I put this? It's a little harder to say and do because I still have to have a day job. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
Hold on, guys. I'm getting disconnected again. My apologies. I'll be right back in just a moment.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Well, I can't blame him at all. Like I said, he is driving from his day job, and he is taking time to do this interview. So I'm going to, and you know how inaccurate it can be just online and the data you have to pull from it. So I mean, Leo, I mean, like, we got to get some of that sweet revenue.
I know. That's something we definitely need to work on. 2020 is something that we said we're going to work on ad revenue. So we're growing the network, growing the shows. What's that?
I went to a Roku channel.
I looked into it. It is friggin' expensive. So
really?
Yeah. I actually looked into it to get our own Roku channel. You're looking at I think it's around $1,200 for the year. And you got to pay it up front. Otherwise, otherwise it's a lot more.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah. So maybe eventually, but
guys, I'm so sorry.
oh, it's fine.
Oh, Bob, don't worry about it.
It wouldn't be one of our.
How dare you not have signal or have other things to do while you're driving?
Yeah.
It's alright, man. Don't worry.
So let's talk a little bit about paranormal. Wow,
there we go.
Oh, you get to jam out with you too?
I am having all of the problems right now with the. Man, this is probably your guys'. This is the first and last time I ever get booked on the guest on your guys' show.
No, it's we've had some crazy shows. We had one where we didn't know that somebody I had booking at one time actually booked a porn star for the show, and it was quite the interesting show. So.
Well, thank you for putting up with my technical difficulties.
Oh, totally.
Well, Leo, there was the show we had with that one actress in New York where she had no service, and she was getting more and more pissed at us because she thought it was our fault that we kept the service kept dropping.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for understanding. But to answer your guys' question, the dream you guys are talking about where it's my job, I still have to have a day job for the moment. But I'm working on achieving it. And people ask me lately, especially at the day job, they're like, wow, how are you doing this? And I said, I don't know. There's not enough hours in the day to make it work. Does that make sense? I somehow figure it out. Between the convention schedule and cranking out time at work, it's doing good, but I'm happy to announce here on the show that I will be taking the steps probably within the next couple months to make Bob After Dark at least more of a full-time focus or a financial focus. So yes, I guess you could say I'm living the dream now, but soon enough I could legitimately say I'm living the dream.
Awesome. Total congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, so like I said, I knew you when we were Ghostbusters, part of the Windy City Ghostbusters, which is a great group. Check them out.
Still part of it.
So with the amount of time you put in Bob After Dark, has that kind of helped them out? Have you kind of taken a little bit more of a part-time role with them, or are you just as active in doing the fundraising and all that stuff with them as you were before? And is the show
man, I feel like I'm on an expose now. I am the vice president of the Windy City Ghostbusters. I am able to do as much as I physically can. We have a very, very large group with the team. There's something like 50 members on our team. So I'm still hanging out behind the scenes. I'm doing as much as I physically can. Everybody knows they could come to me as a consultant. I'm able to kind of help guide the rookies, and I'm still doing events. As my girlfriend has threatened me in the past, absolutely not. You are still going to be a Ghostbuster, and that's how we met. And Ghostbusters gave me Bob After Dark, and it really did. GBing has literally been a foundation in my life that's been kind of a weird parallel and coincidences that has lined up pretty much everything in my life. Ghostbusters introduced me to my girlfriend, who I'm expecting to spend a good quantity of forever with. Ghostbusters lined me up with some of my best friends in the entire world. It lined me up with a good network of people around the country like you, James, where I can, there's Ghostbusters that do really cool things outside of Ghostbusters, and it's really cool to have that network. And then the side thing is Ghostbusters gave me not just friends but family. I learned, these people that I've met in this hobby, they're going to be my friends forever. I go to my Ghostbusters with my problems. I call them up. I called one of my good friends from Windy City today, James Norman, and I said, hey, I'm getting ready to step down to my full-time job. I'm going to be working part-time, with the Bob After Dark thing. Those are things I reach out to my friends from that for, because I've been around them. They're like my friends. They're my family. It's a strange camaraderie. And there's enough goddamn nonsense in the ghost busting hobby that I'm just sick of it at this point. And I like to think of my Ghostbusters as something better. And I made some friends through this that I'll never forget. And I'm kind of gushing about Ghostbusters.
Well, no, and Leo and Yo-Yo can assist. I met Leo and Yo-Yo in the Dorkening at a convention as a Ghostbuster. They won a bunch of our raffles the first year we kind of did our first convention.
Hold on. Yo-Yo won a bunch of the raffles.
I won one.
No, you won.
And I wear that ring every day.
Was it Vlad?
Vlad won one too. Vlad won 2 or 3 that year. I met, like I said, I met Bob. I met a bunch of the people out there. I met Ryan from the New York City Ghostbusters, who was in my wedding. He was one of my best men. So was it my friend Dave, who, again, was a Ghostbuster, being a really good friend. And Bob, I'm with you. There's a ton of parallels, and they do become a second family. I met my wife at a convention where I was a Ghostbuster, which I didn't know she was interested in me until the 3rd day. And Yo-Yo and Leo can attest to that. But I totally hear you on that, and it's definitely something that, like I said, I met you, I met everybody else at the premiere, and and just, it's true, the community is strong, and the stronger the community gets is greater. But at the same time, I'm with Bob. Some of the stuff that's going on in the community, I'm just dude, I'm gonna hang out with the people I know that aren't doing that. So,
yeah. My apologies. I was going to say, if I ever won an award, which I don't think there's awards for podcasters, but if there was some sort of Academy Award, my thank you speech would conclude, if there was no Ghostbusters, there would be no Bob Anderson that we know today. That's a fact. Ghostbusters, I was a confident person. I was kind of that dorky, prom king-esque guy. I had friends, but Ghostbusters really broke me out of my shell and really showed me self-confidence that I had in myself. And it really, people call me a ham now, but I legit, that's what taught me that. And if it wasn't for Ghostbusters and my mentors like Chris Biddle and the team and et cetera, these guys taught me to be the person that I'm supposed to be. And if it wasn't for Ghostbusters, Windy City, and the people in the team, Steve Zentrowski, et cetera, that really, really pushed me to be a better person and to be a better performer and to be a better just me, I wouldn't be where I'm at. I really owe Bob After Dark, my relationship, and a lot of my successes to Ghostbusters, as dumb as that sounds.
How's that so dumb?
Yeah, I don't think that's dumb. So, Bob, as today is the 1-year anniversary of the announcement of Ghostbuster Afterlife, are you excited for the movie coming out in July? Are you hesitant? What?
Man, I always get the Ghostbuster questions.
I'm getting these out of the way, and then we can dive into the paranormal. These are just.
It's fine. No, you're okay. I got to experience Ghostbusters Fan Fest, right? I was there. I did the blessed Class 10 ticket, where I spent a lot of money to go there and pitch Bob After Dark to Dan Aykroyd. The only reason why I went. And it was a really nail-biting experience, right? Everybody's there like, are we getting a trailer? Are we getting a trailer? Are we getting a trailer? And we didn't get a trailer. I traveled across the country to get to see this trailer that we didn't get. And then I'm getting to the 2020 question, I promise. It's important. I got to the Ghostbusters 2020 thing, like the LA thing, and I pitched a show to Dan Aykroyd. I come home and I'm like, wow, Ghostbusters is great. I'm excited for this. Shit, there's a new movie coming out and I know nothing about it. And I'm like, damn, I spent fucking $1,500 on a ticket and I don't know anything about the new movie other than people read scripts, right? And fast forward to, you get a little bit of announcements and those fucking leaked pictures that were pissing me off. Excuse my expressions. I was getting really mad. I'm like, don't give me leaked photos from, site people and Ghostbuster groups. I don't want it. Give me a trailer, right? That's all I want. I avoided the pictures at all costs. The trailer came out, and I know that meme about, people cried during the Ghostbusters 2020 trailer. I watched it. It was early in the morning, and I cracked a joke. I woke up and I posted the live-action Ghostbusters TV show from the 70s and said, Ghostbusters 2020 trailer. I like the direction they're going. I'm confused why they have a gorilla, but, I was just kind of joking around. And not even 3 seconds later, I can't remember who shared it, but somebody put it up and said, it's here. And I'm like, all right, joking's done. It's time to get serious. I watched a trailer, and I'm not lying to you. I cried. And I cried so hard that I watched it again, and I watched it again, and I watched it again. And it was getting to a point where I was freezing it frame by frame to kind of get an idea about what I wanted to do. And at the end of it, I realized that Ghostbusters 2020 showed me that, like, one trailer and I was sold. It was just like Ghostbusters 2016, which I actually really enjoy. I love the franchise so much. This is a franchise that changed my life. And this trailer comes out. I got to see it, blah, 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 blah. And it hit me that, yes, I'm excited. But it's more than just excitement. It's just understanding. People are like, don't get yourself too hyped. It's like, it's not even really a thing, is it? Being too hyped?
No. That's no thing. I think there's no level of not being hyped.
As long as you don't go looking for leaks.
No leaks. And the first person who shares me a Ghostbusters 2020 leak is getting, I will find you. Let's just put it that way.
So, I mean, it's one of those things, I'm looking forward to it. I think everybody on our show is looking forward to it. I like the direction they're going. I think it's very well cast. I'm very curious to see what happens next. I remember I was watching it. I kind of was like sold. I was sold. I'm like, I like where they're going with this. And because I am a fan of the 2016 movie, and I always preface it as, if you took the 2016 movie and put it in a vacuum where the other two movies didn't exist, that is an unbelievably great Ghostbuster movie.
I agree.
What that movie was, it will always be compared to the other two. That's just the nature of the beast. And I said, like, I like the continuation of the story and how they're doing it, but in the back of my head is, I wish Paul Feig did something like this with those girls that kind of connected the story to the originals. Like, that's kind of like the back of my head. That's the only sour taste in my mouth about that. It was like, the potential was there, and even if you just had those same actresses and Paul Feig and just kind of attaching a little bit more to the originals, I think it would have been a lot better, and I think it would be equally as funny or even possibly more. That's my 2 cents on that.
So here's a question for you, and we talked a little bit not about Ghostbusters in general, but actually we should have with our show about toxic fandom, and I know we'll definitely venture over to paranormal because Bob, I definitely have some questions for you, but how would you feel if they do link this movie with Ghostbusters 16? What if there's some like temporal, not really temporal rift, but like a dimensional rift, and we get a glimpse of the girls. How do you, obviously the fans would be, some fans, toxic fans would be pissed, but how would you guys feel about that?
How would I feel? Or James can answer it first if he wants, because I'll tell you how I feel in 2 words.
I would love it. I think they've done such a great job in the comics, setting up that there are multiple worlds, or the multiverse of the Ghostbusters does exist. And I believe in the crossing over, and Bob can confirm this or not, the crossing over arc they did, it showed that all the Ghostbusters exist in these parallel dimensions because of the Gozer incident. And that's why everybody, the logo is the same. It's always the firehouse. It's a lot of the continuity you see is because of the initial Gozer infiltration of Manhattan, and they kind of come and they start crossing over all the animated shows, all the movies, and I'm like, so if that's something they're going to lead to and they want to do, I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
I agree, 100%. I hope they do. I really do. I love 2016 in a different way than I love the other Ghostbuster films. The same reason why I like Extreme Ghostbusters, different. Absolutely.
Extreme Ghostbusters.
Give me that. That's what I want. I want that crossover. I feel like I don't deserve anything. I shouldn't say that, but I feel like 2016 fans deserve that crossover, because it kind of it's legitimate now, but I feel like that kind of cements it to the toxic fandom. It's like people were pissed, oh, this is not my Ghostbusters. I remember that was a fucking hashtag for a while, not my Ghostbusters, right? And it's like, who the fuck are you, right? Why are you mad? You don't have to like the movie, but the toxicity that came from the negativity from it, that's a whole nother monster. And yeah. I feel like if they brought the 2016 girls in, I feel like that's the biggest slap in the face to the toxicity. It's like, look at this movie made by, the son of the creator of Ghostbusters, and it's involved with all of the originals. And look, 2016's here, and they're here in this movie, this continuity that you want and you're excited for. I hope it happens.
That would be awesome.
So that's my answer.
In the chat room, Tori Pritchard says, I love it too, and that's the origins of Ghostbusters in the first place. Angela is in the chat room as well. A couple people watching, so if you have questions, just post them in the comments here. We're over on YouTube and Facebook, and so let's kick it over to paranormal. What got you into paranormal, Bob?
Oh, that's a good question. When I was a young boy,
I was a young lad of 10.
I was a young lad when I first I'm trying to crack a My Chemical Romance joke, but I don't think anybody's fandom here will get it. So I'll just say it, and if you guys don't understand, it'll be a flatline joke. When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band, but never mind.
Black Parade, got it.
Yes. Okay. So when I was a young kid, I grew up watching Unsolved Mysteries, which I don't know if you guys remember that show.
Oh, loved that show, yeah.
My dad wouldn't let me watch certain episodes because it was on at like 8 o'clock on a Friday night, and it would keep me up somewhere.
Yes. I watched Unsolved Mysteries religiously as a boy. And Unsolved Mysteries was the quintessential, like, opening my eyes to different viewpoints, if that makes sense. I mean, Unsolved Mysteries was they showed true crime, they showed things that were going on in the crime world, but the paranormal side of things, those were the episodes I loved and the segments I just adored. And even now, being like an adult and like kind of like watching reruns, because I mean these things are like 30 years old now. There's still things I learn about the world and whatnot, and I still pick up on those old segments. So it started there, and then you get into the adolescence, and you start kind of either picking or choosing what you want to believe in, right? And I decided I still believed in something. And I got hooked on those like paranormal, like the early paranormal shows, things like Scariest Places on Earth, hosted by Linda Blair, and like The Masked Magician. I was into all of this stuff. I was into the occult 100% of the time, and I really, really just enjoyed what I was doing. I really enjoyed, excuse the door creaks, guys. I really enjoyed that kind of thing. And the next thing I knew, I was reading on the topics. I was learning things. I was kind of diving deep. And so, yeah. And, you know, you pick up on things even now. People call me an expert. I'm like, I'm still a student.
Well, I mean, the definition of expert is having more than like the general knowledge. So
Sure.
I think you can easily call yourself an expert. Similar to me, I was hooked on growing up when I was really young. The In Search of with Leonard Nimoy.
Oh my God, that's such a good one. I didn't watch it as a boy because that was a little before my time, but I watched it as an adult. Now I catch reruns and whatnot. So I've watched it now, and there's some good episodes. Did you ever see the one with the haunted Toys R Us?
I must have. I haven't seen them in a long time though. I just remember sneaking up to a TV we had upstairs and watching it late at night when like everybody was asleep.
Leonard Nimoy was such a good host, and it was so much fun to kind of like. It's fun to watch it now.
Yeah. Where do you know where you can find it now? If
you can watch them on YouTube.
Okay, nice.
Everything's on YouTube. Yeah. Just gotta get past the ads.
The new show is pretty good too with Zachary Quinto.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Bobby, you were saying that you were doing your own investigations, basically. What were some of the cool things that you found, or kind of? Oh, I got you, dude. You set it up, man. I just knock them down. You said,
hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Did we lose him again? I think he connected to like a new Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I connected to the Wi-Fi. I apologize, guys. That's my last time. I promise. I'm here.
It's okay. So you said earlier on that you've done some investigations of your own, like of your own things. What have you investigated, and what has been the coolest thing that you have discovered, and kind of your knowledge has grown more based on those type of like investigations?
Recently, or when I was younger?
Now you pick the timeline.
Okay, so when I was younger, I like to use the term paranormal investigations really loosely, because when you're a kid, everybody's got like that haunted house on the block, or that weird spooky park, right? Or like, if you go to the cemetery at night. So, I mean, I was exploring those when I was younger, but I wouldn't really I guess that's like the baselines of investigations is curiosity and exploring those curiosities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So as a kid, you do those things as dares, or, the unknown interests you. So, I mean, I didn't really learn a lot other than like I was jumpy. Now, as an adult, you go into them, you learn the history behind things. So a couple of my more recent, like, investigations, I don't know how familiar you guys were with John Dillinger. Yeah. The famous bank robber. So I went to the Crown Point jailhouse recently, and it was really cool because that was the jail. If you guys ever seen Public Enemy with Johnny Depp, that was the jail that he broke out of. And that was the famous, like, I made a gun out of soap and I broke out of jail and stuff. And, some of the big name TV show people have been to that place, and I just got free access to go do whatever I want in this jail. That was a lot of fun. Recently, I went to the Casadega Spiritualist Camp in Florida, That's more of like a metaphysical gathering, but the energy in that place is so different. You go there and you just feel different. And that was a very interesting investigation because I wasn't there actively hunting things down, but it kind of finds you, if that makes sense. That was one of my more recent ones. And then just over this past weekend when I was in Columbus, this is really cool. I went to a haunted bar in Columbus, Ohio called the Char Bar. I walked in, I heard stories, but I walked up to the bartender, it was happy hour, was busy, and I said, hey, I left him a good tip, and I said, hey, how haunted is it? He's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, this place is haunted, right? And he's like, yeah, but what, whatever. And I'm like, I'm a paranormal investigator, I'm a podcaster. Here's my information. And he's like, I'm really busy, but I could talk to you about it tomorrow. He gave me his phone number, and he's like, have a beer and go sit down. Sure. I went and sat in the back room with my girlfriend, and we're hanging out by this door, and I'm like, it's down there. And she's like, oh, you're picking up on that? I'm like, absolutely. He walked by just to go do something. I'm like, all the stories are from down there, aren't they? He's like, yeah, how'd you know? I'm like, we're just sitting here. And that was a really cool moment. So I hope I'm not trotting your guys' ears off.
No. Absolutely love this stuff. So have any you other guys had experiences? James, Yo-Yo? With the paranormal?
I actually stayed at a haunted house, a true confirmed haunted house up in Massachusetts. That's the one I know one of the caretakers of the house. And that was interesting. And we were supposed to actually be there with an investigative group. So I would kind of like his assistant. He just kind of makes sure everything's open, the heat's on, all that stuff. They never showed. So he's like, well, I can just show you around and kind of show you what happens. And he told the whole story about it. And I'll remember this too. And I like to be scared. I'm one of those guys who likes Halloween. I like haunted houses. I like decent scary movies. But this one, it was, he sets the scene well. You get the history of the house, and so you go into one of the rooms, and he tells you that this person lived in this room, and she doesn't like the entity in here. Does not like men whatsoever. Does not like men at all. So we brought 2 flashlights, and he put they're the twist flashlights, like the mag lights. They have to twist on, twist off. So he twisted it just enough that it was on, but it wasn't like it was a solid line. And we would be asking it questions, like we would be in the room and asking questions, and it would be like so I'm talking, and the lights would turn on and off, the flashlight, and we're stepped away, we're away from there, and they're just turning on and off. And so it got really cold, and I just felt off. I felt weird. And I look at him. I was like, "Was everything good?" And he goes, "Yeah, you're okay." Like, because I think he could sense that I wasn't, and he wasn't. And then he asked the question, and it was like, "Do you want us to leave?" And the flashlights just started turning on and off, like very, very rapidly. And I'm like, "I'm out. Like, I'm all set. Like, I'm all set." Like, stuff like that is like, and he was like, he had like an EVP, and we were sitting and we were doing like live EVPs in these rooms, and you can hear them, like you play them back and you can hear something.
Oh, wow.
And we're still in the house. And it was sitting there, and I'm like, oh my, like and that was like my first ever real encounter with like the paranormal, like hands on, air quotes there, Bob, hands on, interacting. And you're sitting there, and he goes, we can stay later if you want. I'm like, nope, I don't need to stay overnight. We were there till like 11 o'clock. But you find, I'll find it. You find out more about this house and what it does. And it's like, and you find out the guy there is just like, it was a bad dude. And like, it was unbelievably. And like I said, if you want, a cool place to go. I recommend that for you to kind of go. Oh, SK Haunted Victorian Mansion. That's what it's called.
Oh, Victorian mansions. They're always haunted. You never find like a Victorian mansion now and look at it and be like, well, that's not haunted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called the SK Pierce Haunted Mansion. And they've literally like updated, like they did a bunch of work on the house. They kind of restored it back to what it was back in the 1800s, and it's awesome. And it's there. I think he said there's like eight to 10 confirmed different entities in the house.
Wow,
It's a lot of entities.
Yeah, but they're all like related. They're all part of this family at one point or another. And it's like, he was telling us stories in which they had this machine in one of the rooms that helps measure something. And they were talking to the entity in the room, and all of a sudden he said the machine freaks out, and then gets thrown across the room. And they were like, "We're leaving." So
something that want you get them there.
So I wasn't there for that one, but I kind of was like, but you walk in this house, man, and you're just like, something is off in this house. And it was cool. It was so cool. It was awesome, because you're actually, and again, I'll be quoting Ghostbusters, I actually touched the ethereal plane. Like, I was there. I was there with the ghost in the room. It was awesome.
That's such a good answer.
I might have crapped my pants, but it was awesome.
It's like I can buy new ones.
Yes.
I have a couple if you guys are interested.
I that's what I live for.
Oh, totally. So I have a UFO one. I'll get out of the way, and then I have a couple ghost one. I'll tell you. So I used to live growing up my parents' old farmhouse, and my family used to own 300 acres of land, like multi-generational. And one night I wake up with this sound, and I've never heard anything like it since or before. It was like a weird, like magnetic, like humming. And I look out the window, and there's this ball like hovering over where my grandparents' old house used to be. And it just hovered there for, I'd have to say, good 15, 20 minutes. Scared the ever-living shit out of me. And this is like way out in the boonies. There's, it's a long dirt road, so there's no traffic or anything like that. We're on top of a hill. But yeah, I've never experienced anything like that since. And then shortly after my dad died, I woke up and felt him holding my hand, which is really freaky. And another time I rented this house that was totally haunted. It was an old Civil War era house. It was right on the water. Awesome house. But first night we stayed there, it was it's like the house came alive. There was like, it was like the wind was like slamming everything open and closed and everything. And then like after that, it was like nothing like that again, but there would be like door slamming. My wife at the time kept on seeing somebody on the back deck. I'd run around to try to find them, and like nobody was there. Lights would like keep on breaking, and there was one night I was sleeping, and the way those old houses are, they're all awkwardly shaped. The only way we could fit our bed there was like right next to the door. So I'm sleeping, and like the door is like inches from my head, and I woke up in the middle of the night. Something slammed the door. Scared the shit out of me. But yeah, it was pretty crazy times. And the house had a whole old, like, it was like a boat launch in the basement. They used it to like launch boats for the war. It was crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I broke that lease early.
Your friend Yo-Yo here seems a little on the quiet side. Skeptic, or?
I just don't really have much to share, so that's the fortunate part here.
Do you believe in things?
Yeah. The only experience I have is when I saw a woman walking down my steps when we were living in Philadelphia, and I was super confused. I'm like, no one else should be in the house, but like me, my brother, my sister. And it wasn't until like years later that I saw a picture of the woman. It was my father's mom, who the house we were living in Philly was his parents' house before they passed.
That's wild. What a good story.
That's all I got.
I got one more.
You didn't know what she looked like before, though, huh? You saw the picture and you're like, that's the woman.
She died literally like 1 year ago to the day like I was born. Like year after I was like, the year after she died, I was born.
And you saw a photo and you're like, that's the woman that was walking down the stairs.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Wow. See, this is why I do what I do. You know, I whenever I do panels and whatever, I have a phone line hooked up that people could call into my show, and I always invite people to share their stories with me because I always get so excited to hear other people's experiences because like I have my own. I get experiences all the time. It's my life, right? My girlfriend's home is severely haunted, but most of the time it's because we're letting things come kind of haunted out and let the spirits kind of warm up in the home before they move on. And you know, I have experiences. I can tell you experiences day in and day out. It's you guys who I want to make the star. And that's the whole like premise sometimes behind my podcast, and especially in my panels. I'll share a couple ghost stories, but I want you guys to tell them. And I want people to feel comfortable and safe sharing their experiences with me. And I want people of all walks of life to know that they could come to me, and I'm not going to call them crazy, and I'm not going to call them, you know, I'm not going to bash them for seeing things or believing things. That's, you know, my whole perspective on why I like to do what I do. And hearing your guys' stories is so cool, especially yours, Yo-Yo. You saw the photo and you're like, that's her. And you had no idea. That's so fucking cool. Thank you for sharing your story with me.
So there was. So I don't know if you ever saw where I lived in Leicester. Did you? Did you ever like? I lived in old. So I lived in when I lived in out by Worcester, Mass. I lived in a farmhouse, an old large farmhouse that was converted into multiple units. And I told Jen this story, and she goes, "You're telling me this right before we go to bed? I'm not going to sleep now." So what it was this is when I was living by myself. I was single, or I think I was just starting Jen. It was right around that time, and I'm laying in the bed, and I remember I woke up because I heard something coming up the stairs. So I thought, oh, it was my cat Owen, my fat cat Owen. 30 pounds, so I figured it's him going up the stairs. No, he was in my knee. So I hear something coming up the stairs. My back is to my door. I'm not turning over. My eyes are clamped. I'm literally getting goosebumps telling this story right now. All of a sudden I hear like I hear it enter the room, and it like tells me like shh.
You're being too noisy.
by breathing.
You're breathing too loud, man.
but like I mean, like look at my arm.
Oh wow,
that's great. That's a damn good story too.
But like,
see, I appreciate this,
Bob. What I'm telling you, it never happened before, and it never happened again.
At that moment, you pissed off whatever was there. I can't explain it for you. People ask me a lot, like, "Oh, how do I?" You know, something came to me once, and it never. You must have done something to piss it off in that moment. It wanted to make itself known right then and there.
So Bob, what is?
Well, actually, before we get into that, we got a bunch of comments, and if I don't get to them, I apologize. Tori Pritchard says, "I've been tormented by a black mass with red eyes." She follows up, "I thought it was just night terrors until one night my girlfriend saw it too, huddled in the corner of my room by my feet." Angela says, "I knew it was him. His voice is a giveaway," asking about Bob if you have a YouTube channel as well. And let's see, I thought there was something else.
Can I interject before you read the next comment?
Yeah, totally.
Whoever is being tormented, tell them to reach out to me. I will. I didn't catch the name. Did you say it was Terry?
It's Tori, Torri Pritchard.
Tori Pritchard, follow me on the Bob After Dark social media, which I'll get a chance to plug a little later. Reach out to me. I'll see what I can do to help you out remotely, or we could talk about things a little bit more. And I do not have a YouTube channel just yet. I'm working on that now. That'll be the next step, probably within the next couple months. I'll be taking the video portion of my show and throwing it up there on top of my investigations and probably my panels when I'm talking at conventions and stuff.
Nice.
So right now it's just the podcast, Facebook live show, radio show, and TV star, I guess. Independent TV star. Public access TV star. I'm going to call myself that.
There you go. And Tori, if you want to find more information about Bob, just check the show notes up above or down below. And I have a link to him right there. So it's easy enough. You can just go there, click, and you'll find him.
Yep.
So Bob, what is the one thing you would love to investigate? Either cryptozoological, legend, lore, ghost story. Like, what's the one thing you would love to investigate and kind of see if you can actually, do? Like, I know a lot of people wanted the Mothman. You mentioned that out in West Virginia. I don't know.
You know what? Before I answer that question, I want to applaud you because nobody ever asked me that question ever. No one's ever asked me that question. I got to applaud you for that. I do conventions all the time and I do panels and people ask me what's the scariest thing. No one's ever asked me that, so that's a damn good question. I would say one of my bucket lists have been done already, which was Bray Road in Wisconsin, where the beast, the Dogman, was stalking the people during the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So I've done that one. That's off the bucket list now. So Point Pleasant, West Virginia for Mothman. That's kind of, if you guys want to touch base on, I could talk about that a little later, why that one's important. But Point Pleasant, West Virginia, that one, and seeing Mothman and going to see where it kind of originated, that's Mecca, right? I want to check that one out. My other one, because you East Coasters would appreciate this, the Lizzie Borden home.
You can stay there. That's a bed and breakfast. Do you know Ryan's there for his birthday?
That's amazing. I'm going. That's on my bucket list. I want to do the Lizzie Borden. I want to see the graveyard, the old graveyard in Salem. I haven't heard back yet, but Anime Boston may book me. I'm trying to. If I get booked for Anime Boston, I'll be there. And then I want to see the Salem witch cemeteries. That would be very important to me. So I guess on those sense, and then Stonehenge would be like the other big one, I guess. There's a lot of ones I guess I could sit here and just rattle off to you, but those are like the major ones. Lizzie Borden, the witch cemetery or the memorial site in Salem, Point Pleasant being number one on that list, and then Stonehenge.
Well, Bob, if you do come up to the Northeast, definitely let me know. I'll take you to all those places if you'd like.
Oh, great! Thank you. Appreciate that. I'll keep you updated.
And so this is my last question for you this evening. Is you are from the Chicagoland area? So what is a legend that is known or folk tale or folklore from the Chicagoland area that we out here in the Northeast might not be aware of?
Do ghost stories count?
Sure.
Okay, I want to say our most famous one. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Resurrection Mary. It was on Unsolved Mysteries. It's like the story, but if you guys don't know that one, that's one of my favorite ones to share with people. We have our own Mothman situation now, which I could kind of touch base upon. That one actually kind of goes into my origin story. If you guys would rather hear that, that's a little bit more Bob orientated. But what do you want to hear?
A dealer's choice.
Thanks, I appreciate that. You're making my life hard here on this. Okay, so I'll tell you the origin story behind me and my eye-opening experience that kind of led everything. So once upon a time ago, I was sitting out at a beach. I live on the lakefront, Lake Michigan, right? It's beautiful. I'm sitting out there in one of my favorite spots. I'm just getting kind of a thought in. I was probably, day drinking or something, whatever it was. I was just out there. And I look out on the shoreline and, the horizon, and I see this flying thing. It's different. At first I'm like, oh, I live by refineries and steel mills, and they bring in weird animals all the time on the trains. And I'm like, it might be a bat, it could be a pelican. These are legitimate things that they bring because they're coming in from all over the country, and these animals jump aboard the trains and they get out, right? So we're used to coyotes and bats, etc. So I'm like, maybe it might be a pelican. Wouldn't be the weirdest thing. And I'm like, that's really big. And it gets a little closer, and it looks like a person, but hovering with wings. I'm like, what the fuck? I go to pull out my phone, and it darts. All right, I have no idea. I get home later that day, and I start hearing about Midway Airport, which is one of the major airports in Chicago. This is a legit FAA regulated document about how air traffic control saw a flying humanoid-esque type thing at Midway that is unidentifiable. I just narrowed it down. That's probably the same thing I saw. And I'm like, I wonder what that was. And you hear things about the Mothman, but you don't put two and two together. Fast forward a couple of years ago, it's probably 2-ish years ago. And this is when things really start spiraling out of control for me with the paranormal and just kind of the weird, right? I'm at work, and I'm not going to go too much into this, but I'm going through a lot of nonsense mentally, right? I'm at a point, and I'm going home to take care of things. We'll just leave it at that. I'm driving home, and my radio starts acting really wonky. I'm hearing every song I'm turning on is talking about survival and this and that. I'm like, all right, weird coincidence. And where I work is right over a rock quarry on an expressway, my day job. I'm driving over the rock quarry, and I look up, and I shit you guys not, it's the same fucking thing I saw a couple years ago flying over the horizon. I pull over into the service lane with about 4 other cars. This is, middle of the night, 8, 9 o'clock, so the expressway's not that busy. And I pull over, and this thing's hovering. I pull out my phone, and it darts. And I turn to the other motorists, and I said, you guys see that? And they're like, yeah, that's why we pulled over. I went home, and I shit you guys not, same exact thing reported by the airports again. Flying humanoid thing. But the difference was this time, the one thing I was able to make out, and it was close enough, was red glowing eyes. I'm getting goosebumps telling you guys this story, And I never get tired of telling this because it's so different. I started studying about this thing, and I heard the term Mothman, right? And you see the movie in the 90s, the Richard Gere movie, the Mothman prophecies, and you won't really put two and two together. And over the past few years, there's been more and more sightings about this one, but the sightings are going more north. Where I lived is more south of the city, but now these things are more north in the O'Hare area. And since October, we've had 18 sightings of the same exact thing I saw. And there's people sending in pictures. The air traffic control, which, if you guys don't know, they can't make this shit up because it's federal law. You have, when you see something, you report it. The Ghostbusters 2016 joke, you see something, you say something. So now, since October 2019, we've had 18 sightings. So some people might not know, to answer your question, James, about things that go on here, is Chicago has been visited by what I believe to be the Mothman now. Why is he here? I couldn't tell you. Usually you hear stories about the Mothman making an appearance, and he's this entity bringing a, kind of bad omens, right? He's supposed to be a harbor of, harbinger about bad news. And I couldn't tell you what that bad news is, but he's here supposedly, and most people don't know that we're dealing with that right now. And that's the thing. I could go on for this for hours, guys. I hope I'm not killing your time up, but I hope you enjoyed that story.
No, that was awesome, Bob. Are you gonna go? Do you know Josh from New York City goes to Mothman every year?
I'm trying to vend it this year, so hopefully 2020 will be the year that Bob makes it to Point Pleasant to the Mothman Festival, and I have to see the museum and be there and see the statue. Those are very important to me because my first, I've had ghost sightings and stuff, but my first real encounter and something that I truly believe is part of the reason why I'm still here with you guys. It's because of what I saw that night.
Wow.
Yeah. And maybe some of your fans probably think I'm crazy. That's okay. I like skeptics and stuff. That's important to what I do. Skepticism is very important. So I hope I answered that question, James.
That was awesome. That was really cool. Like, see, I didn't know that. Like, that's the cool thing. Like, I just didn't know that at all. Like, I know the one in Point Pleasant. I didn't know there were sightings all over the place.
They're all over, but the Chicago one's pretty potent now.
Crazy. Oh, that's awesome.
Do you guys have any more questions for me? I could keep going if you want. I 45% battery before I gotta go charge. Keep going.
I love these stories. I'm one that has, I don't believe every single story, but I think it's good to have an open mind because there's a lot of stuff in this world that we don't know, and it's something that could be a cryptid or a ghost or something like that is something that we don't understand yet. Einstein says you really can't destroy energy, and what happens after we pass? What happens to that energy? Where does it go? It's
Leo, that's a good place. That's like a good pin on a good place to kind of just end discussion, and that's a good thing to kind of bring up is not believing everything is very, very, very important. Every investigation I go on, I always go in with a skeptical mind, 100%. I'm not going to see anything. I'm not going to experience anything, and I'm going in there to try to prove it not. I'm a 100% believer, by the way. I eat the shit up. I eat, sleep, and breathe the paranormal, but I'm a skeptic in the regard before I do an investigation because I know then if I come across something, I'm like, oh, I can't explain this. And truth be told, there is a lot of nonsense with the paranormal. I will just be honest with you. A lot of hauntings and a lot of ghost stories you hear about don't end up being true. And there's a great quote from one of my not co-hosts, but one of the colleagues I have, Pat from Ghostly Podcast. He says, if every ghost story was real, we would be outnumbered like 1,000 to 1 in ghost sightings. And that quote always stuck out to me the most. And I'm like, you're absolutely correct. So I truly love the fact that you said you don't believe everything in skepticism. I love skeptics. They're great because they give me something to strive for and to try to prove different. And you can't, there's times when you can't explain things. And those are what makes my job fulfilling, is when I can't explain it. Creaky wood, that could just be a pipe, smack against the floorboard, whatever it could be, right? But I'm in a room, I'm getting all of this results, blah, 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 and I have no explanation for it. That's my thing. So I sorry for interjecting.
Oh, no, that's perfectly fine. I mean, I'm a believer, but it's, I've definitely had some experiences that, there definitely is something else out there, but you also know there's a lot of crazies out there that just want attention.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you what, the crazies if the crazies want to come and listen to my show, they're more than welcome. I'm happy to hear their stories. And if you guys, if we're going to be ending it, do you mind if I do some shameless plugging?
Oh, of course, go for it.
Okay, so Bob After Dark is You can catch me on social media, Facebook and Instagram. I'm working on my Twitter now. If you go there, it's abysmal. But Facebook.com/Bob After Dark, or you could go to BobAfterDark.com, redirects right to the Facebook page, or you could go to Instagram at Bob After Dark. Tag me in your paranormal photos. I'm very good at being able to tell you what's real and what's a potential ghost and what's a bug. So send me that stuff. Tag me in those things. I like seeing it. The Facebook page, I put up posts every other day, every day, so you guys can kind of check out content there. The show is live every Tuesday night, typically Tuesdays if I'm not getting bumped around by sports ball, every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Central, so that would be 10 p.m. Eastern, your guys' time. You could check me out on Facebook Live, TuneIn app, WJOB, or if you guys have a smart TV, the Roku channel, the Roku WJOB channel. And if you guys can't catch any of that, you can listen to me wherever you listen to your podcasts at. Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Meowcast, whatever you listen to your podcasts on, you can find Bob After Dark. And the new episodes get uploaded every Friday, and that is just an archive then of my Tuesday episodes that are live. My next convention appearance, this will be my last shameless plug, I promise. My next confirmed 2 convention appearances, I'll be at Anime Milwaukee. I'll be doing a panel there. If you guys are in the Midwest or going to be in the Milwaukee area, fighting the cold in the beginning of February, I'll be at Anime Milwaukee, and then C2E2 as well. I will not be hosting a panel, but I will be hosting a Bob After Dark fan meetup. So everybody can come out to that and come get a picture with me, and you get the idea.
Awesome. Well,
Tish wants to ask Bob, can you repeat the Roku channel name again, please?
WJOB. So W job.
There you go.
Yep.
And
then if you guys want to email me for whatever reason, bob@bobafterdark.com. You guys email me if you want to book me for your convention, you have paranormal questions, and you're just kind of don't want to bother me on the messenger, you can shoot me an email, and we'll talk there too.
So Bob, I lied. One more question. Has Dan Aykroyd
No, you're fine.
Has Dan Aykroyd returned any of your phone calls yet to get him on the phone?
No. So listen, Dorkening fans, please. I need Dan Aykroyd on my show. He doesn't physically need to be there, but we need to talk. Dan took off his sunglasses and looked me at FanFest and said, and I quote, "You are probably the most interesting person here." And he came back around to talk to me about Bob After Dark. He called me out in his panel about the paranormal and said, Bob runs a successful podcast called Bob After Dark. I about shit myself when that happened. So listen, if Dorkening fans, anybody out there can get in touch with Dan, let him know I need him. I know he had to do last podcast on the left. That interview was great. I know he had to do Joe Rogan. Okay, he's got to go down the hierarchy, but he's going to have to start reaching to the bottom of the barrel at some point, and that's when he has to come on Bob After Dark. He doesn't have to talk about Ghostbusters. That's fine. I won't even bring it up to him. But anybody, I need Dan. I need him.
He didn't give you your card or anything like that at the show?
Oh, I gave him all of my information, gave him everything. And I even reached out to people to where I could get personal contact info. I've reached out. So Dan, if you're listening to this, I need you. Let's talk about ghosts. Let's talk about aliens. Please.
Angela is
Sorry,
asking.
I had to do a plea there.
Okay.
Angela is asking, is it okay to DM you on Instagram or Facebook Instant Messenger better for Bob After Dark?
It doesn't matter. I prefer probably Facebook. Just know that if you're messaging me on Facebook, my manager sees that, my producer sees that, my co-host sees that. If you're trying to remain personal, if you'd rather just talk to me for whatever reason, Instagram's fine. But if you're okay with the team that's there is there to help you. So everybody that sees that, I promise you, is all on the professional side. So if you want to reach out, you could reach me at the Facebook page too, if you're okay with that. I'm just letting you know.
Awesome. And Trish says, love the Bob After Dark logo.
Thank you. That was made by, quick shout out to Jacob Bartlett from the Circle City Ghostbusters. He made that logo for me.
Very cool.
And you can buy your Bob After Dark merch at coming very soon, t-shirts and all of your fun stuff coming soon.
Sweet. Well, Bob, I want to thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's been an
Afternoon.
I'm sorry.
Did I go through a time loop?
Apparently we all did.
Technically, he's not wrong. It's still afternoon.
It is.
Semantics.
Welcome to Bob Afternoon.
It's been a long day. It's been a long week. It's I need liquor. I need hard liquor.
Dorkening, I just want to thank you guys so much for having me on. I am actually fun. I geeked out when James reached out to me. I love your guys' show. I've been watching it since I've known James. And back when I was trying to start Bob After Dark, I remember messaging James. I'm like, how do you do the multicam thing? And
I'm like, it's all Leo.
And James blew me off for years.
Oh.
James left me on read for like 2 years.
Bob, I think you've gone past the multi-camera on Facebook Live without my phone.
So maybe actually that was better. You know, who knows? If you would have followed his advice, you would have ended up like us. But now you're successful.
Oh, but it was
Joe. Just remember that.
What's that? I'm sorry, you broke up.
I said me not helping you helped you.
Yeah.
But no, thank you guys so much for having me. I was so excited to be a part of this show, and I hope I was a good guest. I hope minus the technical difficulties. I hope you guys enjoyed this.
Technical difficulties are to be expected.
So, I mean, Bob, if you like being on the show, we would love to have you as like a permanent, as a recurring guest every once in a while, coming in and telling us some stories and catching up with some of your investigation stuff. We'd love it. I mean, our fans have loved hearing your stories, and we're getting some feedback. So, you know, if you're up to it, maybe we can reach out in a couple months, see what you're doing, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll let you know if Anime Boston pans out and all that fun stuff.
There's a couple shows up here that maybe we can give his information to see.
You guys, let them know they could book me. I'm a cheap date.
Yeah, totally. We have some cons coming up. I'll when they reach out to us, I'll give them your information.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate that. And remember, I always end all my interviews like this, if you guys don't mind. The most important rule of everything, guys, is always remember that not all who wander are lost. Good night, everybody.
I think that's a perfect way to end the show, Leo.
Yeah. I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll do a quick rundown. If you are interested in learning more about Bob, check the show notes down below or up above, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. All the information is right there, but more importantly, well, not more importantly, because Bob is the most important thing right now, but head on over to thedorkening.com to find out all the information about all the shows on our network. We're up to 17 shows and growing. I got a couple shows I need to add to the network, Amaga Files and a couple other Shark Bites that came on recently. So crazy, 17 shows. It's insane. Yo, where do you like people following you?
Boy Meets Phone on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Yo Saint Laurent on those same channels.
James?
Again, one more shout out to Bob. Like I said, he's probably one of the nicest guys I've met in the last couple of years with the Ghostbusters, and he is one of the more knowledgeable persons about this kind of stuff. So again, to our listeners, to our fans, if you have any questions, concerns, just want to pick his brain, it's there to be picked. So definitely give him a shout out. And again, thank you so much for joining us, Bob. It's been an unbelievable pleasure. I'm sorry I did not get to see you out in Los Angeles, but hopefully, July's coming. Maybe we'll reconnect once we get out there for the premiere, possibly.
You know it. There is nothing in the world that would stop me from being in LA for the Ghostbusters 2020 premiere. Or Sony, if you're listening, I'm just letting you know right now. I'll be there.
Or you could just come out to and harass Ryan in New York.
Spoilers, New York Comic Con.
Uh-oh.
We'll talk about that another day.
All right, you can find me at Longtime Storm on the tweets and the Instagrams, and right here on the Dorkening Podcast Network.
Okay, and for me, just Google Leo Pond. You'll find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not. I'm not going to say which is which. And we'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Peace.